Good evening friends, you are most welcome to Thinkai's channel. Today we are going to discuss Money 003, in which we are going to discuss comparative ethnography, and our topic is feminist methodology. Feminism and positivism. One of the major challenges posed by feminists to mainstream science and social sciences, also designated as male stream by some writers, has been its critique of positivism. Early social sciences, including sociology and anthropology, were modeled on the positivist tenets or principles of value free objectivity. Positivist science aims at the collection of facts and truth. Research must be replicable and have validity and reliability. This view of science implies a certain hierarchical distance between the researchers, the scientists, and the subjects of research, the laypersons. laypersons. The researchers is expected to keep certain objectives and analytical distance from the subjects so that he or she can objectively see, judge, and interpret the life and the meanings of the subjects. Even within anthropology, in which researchers go out into the field, learn the local languages, and live in the community for an extended period, they are cautioned not to go native or identify themselves so completely with their subjects that they forget the aims and objectives of their research. This positivist paradigm is in sharp contrast to the way in which feminist research has been described: contextual, inclusive, experiential, involved, socially relevant, complete but not necessarily replicable, inclusive of emotions and events as experienced. Nelson 1990. Accordingly to Diane Wolf, 1996, feminist critiques of positivism have been located in three major areas. First, philosophical critiques of positivism and its pretense of value free science. Second, moral critiques of objectification and exploitation of subjects. Third, practical critiques of the way positivist, positivism opposes the interest of the researcher and the researched. Feminists and others argue that the requirement of objectivity and value neutrality is not only impossible but also undesirable. The hierarchical relationship between the researcher and the subject reflect male forms of interpersonal dynamics. Men are expected to be rational, unemotional, and businesslike in their work. Pat Kaplan, 1988, Wolf, 1996, suggests that objectivity is simply a form of male subjectivity. Feminist scholars engaged in qualitative fieldwork traditions, that is, example, anthropologists and sociologists have encouraged relationship between the researcher and the researched that are based on friendship, trust, intimacy, and closeness rather than a cultivated distance. This is expected to make it possible for a deeper researcher, more nuanced picture of respondents' lives to emerge. Some feminist anthropologists have experimented with different forms of writings in order to depict women's experiences in a richer, more meaningful way. Some use the device of autoethnography and place themselves narrative dealing within the narrative detailing their own experiences and emotions rather than writing outside the account. The term intersubjectivity has been used to describe a two-way relationship between researcher and subjects, wherein the researcher compares her work with her own experiences as a woman and scientist and shares it with her subjects who then add their opinion. This now only challenges the splitting of researcher and researched and of subject and object, but also encourages the researcher to put herself into the research and writings as part of experience. Dwelly, Klein, 1983, and Wolf, 1996. Feminist and fieldwork. Feminists have reflected extensively upon the dynamics of fieldwork. We have earlier made references to Peggy Gould's 1970 anthology of fieldwork experiences of women scholars. Other important and frequently cited collections dealing with fieldwork experiences and dilemmas include Sherna Gluck and Daphne Patai's edited volume Women's Words, The Feminist Practice of Oral History 1992, Joyce Nelson's edited volume Feminist Research Methods, Ex- Exemplary Readings in Social Sciences 1990, Kamla Vishweshwaran's Fictions of Feminist Ethnography 1974, Diney Wolf's edited volume Feminist Dilemmas in Fieldwork 1996, in the Indian context the classic 1979 volume The Fieldwork and the Field edited by M.N. Srinivas, A.M. Shah and E.A. Ramaswamy has chapters dealing with the issue of gender, positionality and fieldwork. There are several accounts of the difficulties faced by women researchers in alien settings where the freedom of dress, movement, and expression is severely curtailed. How feminist researchers have to negotiate and sometimes submit the patriarchal pressure makes for an interesting readings. For instance, while conducting research amongst the Bedouin Bedouin in Saudi Arabia, Leela Abu Lughod, 1986, had to live like a Bedouin daughter and conform conform more strictly to their gender norms than the other young women of the community. The process of immersion enables the researchers to gain a perspective on the culture from within and sometimes positions her differently from a more distant participant observer, reflecting upon their positionality, attempting to share and compare their experiences with their respondents, and using ethnography as a means to uncover the intimate day to day lived experiences of women across races, ethnicities, caste, and class are thus the hallmark of feminist research and methodological underpinnings that brought fresh flavors and vigor to anthropological writing. At the same time, there have been several critics, both from outside and within the feminist movement, which have made practitioners constantly question and reflect upon their ideas and practices. The issues of the inherent power relationship that categorizes the fieldwork experience is one such issue. Friendship, intimacy, sharing between researcher and researched can be exploitative and bring up unequal power equations. Kumkum Bhavani Kumkum Bhavanani 1988, CF Wolf 1996 argues that these power relations are hidden because the researcher's power is often transparent and unspoken. Yet she makes decisions right from the conceptualization to writing about the subjects and eventuality withdraws from the field back into her own world of the prestige and privileges. Judith Stacy 1991 classic piece Can There Be a Feminist Ethnography makes the point that the closeness and intimacy feminist researchers seek may actually be more harmful than objectivity. The tragedies and crises in the lives of subjects often end up being data for the researcher, leading to a sense of betrayal for the subject and guilt for the researcher. For example, a researcher may learn many intimate family secrets by cultivating friendships with respondents, If she uses the information to further her own research agenda, she may cause great psychological and sometimes even physical harm to the subjects. Feminists have contributed to the literature on research ethics, human rights, informed consent, and privacy issues through critical examinations of their own practices. Daphne Patai 1991 asked the important questions: if it is it possible to write about the oppressed without becoming one of the oppressors? Wolf 1996. The question is still open to debate. In the next section, we will briefly review some of the current and emerging areas that have attracted the attention and engagement of the feminist anthropologists. We draw upon Alan Levin's 2006 review of feminist anthropology for this purpose. Contemporary issues and concerns. As feminist anthropology has expanded and developed over the years, it has maintained some of its fundamental tenets but also changed enormously. Much of this has been due to the continued introspection and self reflection of its practitioners, as described above. It has also made a place for itself in academic institutions of the discipline and has been absorbed into the mainstream. Gender is considered as an important significant area of research and specialization, and all important academic journals and publications, both national and international, publish papers and articles with gender as their major analytical focus. Large number of books are published, and it has become a very difficult task to keep updated with all the latest publications and researches in the area. Some of the current areas of research and engagement have been briefly summarized below. Development and social change. Feminist anthropologists are studying the ways in which gender inflects economic development, migration, nationalism, and the roles and priorities of contemporary nation states in influencing the lives of women and men. The transnational circulation of people and information and the resultant impact on gender patterns, multinational commerce, and the gendered movement of workers into global marketplace, changing political and economic realities and their impact upon social and cultural institutions. The gendered assumptions underlying international development projects and their outcomes for both men and women are some of the themes that have been explored from the gender lens. Motherhood and the body. How the body, particularly the female body, is acted upon the cultural, medical, economic, and other forces has become a central theme in anthropological thought. Health and illness, pain, spirit, position, sexuality, transmitted diseases, AIDS, and the uses made of women's bodies by family members, nations, and enemies have been analyzed. Violence perpetuated on the female body during communal and ethnic rights is very important theme on which scholars like Veena Das, Ravina Robinson, and others have written. Reproductive technologies, diagnostic techniques like amnocentris, amnocentesis, and ultrasound for the purpose of sex selection, assisted reproductive technologies ARTs, including surrogacy, renting a womb, adoption, both national and international, have wide implications for gender relations in the context of developing countries like India, where technologies are readily available but cultural values are still steeped in traditional patriarchy. Feminist anthropologists can contribute greatly to our understanding of these complex cultural processes. The experience of motherhood cross culturally has always been a focus of interest in feminist anthropology. This has been taken further by scholars like Raina Rapp, Faye Ginsburg, and Nancy Skipper Highgees. The physical, mental, and emotional reproductive labor that women engage in to bear and raise their children has been explored in detail. An important contribution is the acknowledgement of how inequality between races, classes, ethnicities, and castes shapes the experience of motherhood. Reflection: Leela Dubey, an Indian pioneer. Leela Dubey is one of the pioneering women anthropologists in India who has produced extremely detailed and insightful work on gender, family, and kinship in India. She was also one of the core member of the committee on the status of women that produced the landmark report towards equality 1974 that squarely brought out the glaring discriminations and inequalities faced by Indian women quarter of a century after a country's independence. She was born in 1923 in an upper middle class Maharashtrian family which valued and promoted education for girls yet still believed that marriage was their ultimate destination. She broke with tradition and had chosen her spouse outside her community, when she married the noted anthropologist Shyama Charan Dubey. S.C. Dubey inducted his wife into the discipline of anthropology and continued to be a source of guidance throughout their life together. Leela Dubey's anthropological work began with her doctoral study of the Gond community in the central India, with a particular focus on Gond women. This was the beginning of a lifelong engagement with issue of gender caste kinship. Her detailed ethnographic work brought alive the world of the interpersonal and family relationships and the lived realities of women's experiences. She also wrote reflexively about her positionality as a scholar, wife of distinguished anthropologist, and a dutiful housewife, daughter-in-law, and mother, and how it impacted her anthropological work. She actively engaged with the emerging literature, feminist anthropology, bringing these perspectives to bear in her own detailed examinations of structure, culture, and agency. Knowledge and representation. In the earlier section on feminist methodology, we examine some of the critical questions raised on issues of research, positionality, and power relation. Feminist anthropologists have raised the issue of insider research, contending that insightful and valuable research can and should be done by those who belong to the community or group that they wish to study. At the same time as anthropologists like Clifford and Marcus 1984 and Geertz 1988 wrote about the nature of culture and ethnographic representation, feminist anthropologists raised the issues of positionality. New and emerging issues in recent years, different dimensions of gender experience have been explored by anthropologists. The study of men and masculinities has become an important arena or area of the inquiry. How is male dominance constructed and enacted? How is masculine identity acquired? These inquiries challenge entrenchment, challenge entrenched assumptions about gender stratification. A recent trend is the emergence of lesbian and gay or queer anthropology, which directly drew inspiration from feminist anthropology. Studies of lesbian, gay, bisexual, and transgender phenomena depend upon understanding about sex, gender, embodiment, and identify, which are at the core of the feminist anthropological inquiry. Postmodernism and anthropology. The earlier section of this unit familiarizes you with the interventions made by the feminist inquiry to anthropological understanding and the manner in which ethnography is undertaken. In this section, we shall discuss the impact of postmodernism upon ethnography. Postmodern anthropology may be described as the culmination, culmination of a series of internal critiques that emerged in anthropology in the 1970s, notably feminism and Marxism. However, none of these critics challenged the very raison d'etre of the discipline. Anthropology's affiliation to the Enlightenment project, marked by science, rationalism, and universalism, stood in the marked contrast to the multiplicity of voices and constituencies represented in the ethnographic record. It is important to situate postmodernism in the history of the ideas. As the term suggests, it refers to a critique emerging in the period after modernity. Modernity, which came into being with the Renaissance in Europe, epistomizes a phase in human history whose watchwords are reason, progress, scientific temper, and the progressive economic and administrative rationalization and differentiation of the social world. Postmodernism means after modernity. It challenges the certitudes of modernity, what Lyotard 1984 describes as meta narratives or grand theories that offer all encompassing accounts of culture. It recognizes the tensions emerging from the process of globalization, the circulation of people, the increasingly intense cross cultural interactions, and the merging and mixing of local and global knowledge. The movement spanned the disciplines of literature, art, architecture, and philosophy, and also had an impact on anthropology. When applied to anthropology, postmodernism shifted the focus to a very nature of ethnography. It holds the it holds that there is no such thing as objectivity in ethnography. Anthropological writings are themselves second and third order interpretation of the world rather than empirical facts or truths. According to Melford Spiro 1996, the postmodernist critique denies that anthropology can be a science because of the subjectivity of the human object. It is hence incapable of discovering objective truth, and since objectivity itself is merely an illusion, science ends up subverting the voices of oppressed groups, women, ethnic minorities, etc. We all interpret the world around us in our own way according to our language, personal experiences, and cultural backgrounds. Anthropology can therefore never be unbiased observer of other cultures according to postmodernist understanding. Postmodern ethnography is associated with the Rice Circle, a group of anthropologists at Rice University, Texas, USA. These include Stephen Tyler, George Marcus, Michael Fisher, and a number of American anthropologists who have written innovative or experimental ethnographies, including Paul Rabinow, Vincent Crepangeno, James Clifford, and others. One of the major figures that influenced this thinking was the French philosopher and critical social theorist Michel Foucault. Even though Foucault never regarded himself as postmodernist, his works deal with issues like power, the body, and the conditions of knowledge, deviance, insanity, criminality, and sexuality in Europe, and show how taken for granted frameworks for understanding the world change historically. He used the term discourse to refer to these frameworks. By discourse, Foucault meant a public exchange of ideas in which certain questions, agendas, and definitions, so called discursive objects, evolved as the result of power struggles between the participant in the discourse and imposed themselves on the sensual human body. Erikson and Nelson, 2008. How to do and write ethnography becomes a critical question in the postmodern critique. The well known collection, Writing Culture, The Poetics and Politics of Ethnography, 1986, edited by James Clifford and George E. Marcus, is one of the foundational texts inaugurating the new ethnography or postmodern ethnography. Earlier in the same year, George Marcus and Michael Fisher published Anthropology as Cultural Critique, an experimental movement in the human sciences. The essence of new ethnography, according to Mutman 2006, is a tendency towards dialogue or communication with the anthropological other, a desire to bring this other into the text and articulate his or her voice in a more plural way. In other words, postmodern ethnography promises difference and otherness through and beyond a modern form of knowledge. Anthropology, which we must note, is itself established on a sense of culture as always belonging to an other. 2006. In his introduction to the writing culture, Clifford 1986 opens his argument by drawing attention to the textual aspect of ethnographic representation. In other words, ethnography as writing culture. He criticizes the notion that anthropological writing is about keeping good field notes. 1986. However, writing is not an innocent or a political act, a political act. It is about how we construct the other, what we include and exclude from our writing. As we have discussed earlier, feminism also made a similar point about how culture and history was written about as a male enterprise, with women's activities and subjectivities being written out of the narrative. Mutman 2006 writes all ethnographic texts are constructions, fictions, economies of the truth through which power and history work, the mapping of non Western cultures positions the Western knowing subject as cultural and political authority. After arguing that ethnography has its own political economy of truth, Clifford reaches the conclusion that ethnographic truths are thus inherently partial, committed, and incomplete. 1986. Marcus 1986 notes that the change in the world political and economic order after the World War II and the profound transitions and dislocations that it brought about found its intellectual reflection in a widespread retreat from theoretically and organized fields of knowledge such as history, the social sciences, literature, art, and architecture. A spirit of experimentation set in, which attempted to explore the fragmentation and diversity in social life. Ethnography in anthropology, he claims, is one such vehicle for experimentation. How can the writer experiment with writing ethnography? According to Marcus 1986, the essayist can mystify the world, leave his subjects' actions open ended as to their global implications from a rhetorical posture of profound half understanding, half bewilderment with the world in which the ethnographic subject and the ethnographer live. This is thus a form well suited to a time such as the present, when paradigms are in disarray, problems intractable, and phenomena only partly understood. In other words, Marcus calls for an open ended text which does not claim to present a neat, well ordered vision of the world, but rather reflects its chaos and disorder, which cannot be captured in any totalizing discourses. An important technique associated with postmodernism is deconstruction. Jacques Derrida, a student of Foucault and a leading figure of the postmodern movement, launched a critique on Western philosophy. He developed a method for analyzing text in order to expose the hierarchical assumptions inherent in them. He referred to this method as deconstruction. According to Erickson and Nelson 2008, to deconstruct a text we need to locate the center of power in it and then look for the unnoticed marginal expression which escape power and allow the reader to interpret the text in new ways. When applied to anthropology, it effectively means the end of ethnography authority. No one can make statements and claim that they are true. Every concept is slippery and can be contested or challenged. As you have read elsewhere, this is not a new critique of ethnography, and the constructed nature of social reality is an idea that has a long history in social sciences, including anthropology. However, Derrida's deconstruction took it to an extreme level, as it did not accept any position or standpoint as a fixed frame of reference from which a text could be judged or evaluated. Thus, there would be deconstruction of deconstructions. Some important text. The new ethnography influenced by the postmodernism has resulted in cultural and historical accounts that revealed a degree of reflexivity not usually seen in traditional ethnographic writing. They highlight how a researcher's cultural identity affects his or her interpretation of other cultures. Some important texts include Paul Rabinow's Reflections on Fieldwork in Morocco 1977, Paul Friedrich's The Princes of Naranja, an essay in Authohistorical Method 1986, in which the author gives an extensive description of his own personal history and the reason why he uses certain stylistic devices to convey a sense of the complexity of Naranjan life. Ethnography is highlighting cultural differences by highlighting intersubjective interactions with people from other cultures, include Marjorie Shostak, Nisa, The Life and World of a Kung Woman 1981, and Vincent Crepangeno's Tuhami Portrait of Moroccan. Ethnographies highlighting cultural differences by highlighting intersubjective interaction with people from other cultures include Marjorie Shostak's Nisa, The Life and Word of a Kung Woman 1981, and Vincent Crepangeno's Tuhami Portrait of Moroccan 1980. Shostak's work has become somewhat of a classic in feminist as well as new ethnography and maps various incidents in the life of her informant Nisas in her own words. Albeit in translation, Crepangeno's dialogue with Tuhami also brings out when manner when also brings out the manner in which the life stories of both the anthropologist and the informant mutually construct each other. Crepangeno's dialogue with Tuhami also brings out the manner in which the life stories of both the anthropologist and the informants mutually construct each other. Michel Rosaldo's knowledge and passion elongate notions of self and social life. 1980 employs new writing techniques to make the voices of elongate headhunters more accessible to her readers. Ethnographies that undertake a close scrutiny of the global systems of domination and their manifestation in symbolic terms in the lives of individuals include Michael Taussig, Michael Taussig's The Devil and Commodity Fetishism in South America 1980 and Gananath Obascari's Medusa's Hair, an essay on personal symbols and religious experiences 1981. More recently, the works of Leela Abu Lughod, Akhil Gupta, and Shep- Nancy Schaefer Hughes. Nancy Schaefer Hughes are regarded as representative of postmodernism in the anthropology. Nancy Schaefer Hughes is a medical anthropologist working at the University of California, Berkeley, and has written widely on the anthropology of the body, hunger, psychiatry, social suffering, violence, and genocide. Her important works are Sands, Scholars, and Schizophren- Schizophrenics, Mental Illness in Rural Ireland 1979, Death Without Weeping, The Violence of Everyday Life in Brazil 1993, and her recent investigation in 2009 on an international ring of criminals trading in human organs operating in the USA and Israel. Death Without Weeping explores child deaths in Brazil and the way in which mothers come to terms with them. Mothers come to terms with them. It is regarded as a contemporary classic. In her important article, The Primacy of the Ethical 1995, she advocates strongly for an anthropology that engages in critical reflection and strives for human liberation and argues that anthropologists should be held to account for not using the discipline as a critical tool at crucial historical moments. With this kind of perspective, the positivist neutral stance that early anthropology adopted has been utterly abandoned. Postmodern critics thus made an important contribution to anthropological theory and method. It signaled the decline of meta narratives, which proved inadequate to grapple with the changes that resulted from globalization, the spread of information technology, the interpenetration of cultures and mingling of peoples, plurality, hyb- hybridity, and fragmentation of experience resulted. Culture as an integrated whole was no longer a meaningful concept, it was pastiche or patchwork rather than a smooth, seamless fabric. Postmodernism signaled a decisive breach with the project of modernity, marked by science, progress, and rationality. It challenged the authority of the ethnographer and called for new innovative ways about writing about ourselves and others. Summary: this unit has attempted to bring out the impact of feminism and postmodernism upon the discipline of anthropology. The relationship between feminism and anthropology has been described as an awkward relationship by Margaret Strathairn as the goals of feminism and anthropology appears to be divergent. Feminism aimed at forging a global solidarity amongst all women across the world, believing that the common experiences of the womanhood transcended other divisions. Anthropology, on the other hand, is concerned with the studying other cultures in their own terms and with their specificities and uniqueness. The idea of cultural relativism enjoins upon us the responsibility to avoid judging or evaluating cultures in terms of our own value orientations and ideological positions. However, feminists pointed out an important deficiency in the discipline, namely the androcentric bias and male centered ethos that had marked much of its history. While a number of outstanding women anthropologists, including Benedict, Mead, Richards, and Caberi, did make their mark on the discipline, it was not until the second wave of the feminist movement in the 1970s and that large numbers of enthusiastic women or enthusiastic feminist scholars made inroads into the discipline and changed it forever. Feminist anthropology emerged as an important subfield within the discipline. The early formulations of universal sexual asymmetry and the underlying unity of feminine experiences came to be challenged by women of color and third world anthropologists. They argued that gender intersects with other bases of stratification and the women's experiences and needs vary dramatically across cultures. At the same time, feminist methodology, which rejected positivism and celebrated friendship, sharing of experience, and breaking down the hierarchy of research relationships, also came under attack as being exploitative and unequal. These interventions in matters of theory and methodology made the field stronger and more rigorous. Feminist anthropology moved from the margins of the discipline to achieve a respectable status as the center of the discipline. Other developments, such as the interrogations of cultures, ethnography, and representation, described as a reflexive turn and were influenced by feminist anthropology. The current areas of engagement and inquiry include development, health, the body and motherhood, reproductive technologies, nationalism, violence and political movements, and new areas like masculinity studies and queer studies. Postmodernism provided an even more radical critique by questioning the very authority of the ethnographer to represent the voice of other, particularly when the world around us is becoming increasingly more fragmented and chaotic, and any attempt to impose an artificial order through grand theories and meta narratives is likely to have very little explanatory value. Unlike feminism, which has its distinct theoretical stances and narrative, postmodernism proposes a radical deconstruction of text and calls upon ethnographers to engage with new, innovative, and experimental ways of giving voice to the other, while at the same time emphasizing the contextuality and situatedness of knowledge. Both these critiques contributed in important ways to the manner in which ethnography is done by anthropologists. References are Abu Lughod, Leela, 1986, Wield Sentiments, Honor and Poetry in the Bedouin Society, Berkeley University of California Press. Clifford James and George E. Marcus, 1986, Writing Cultures, The Poetics and Politics of Ethnography, Berkeley University of California Press. Dubey Leela, 2001, Anthropological Exploration in Gender, New Delhi, Sage Publication. Erickson, Thomas, Halland, and Finn Stewart Nielsen, 2008, A History of Anthropology, New Delhi, Rawat Publication. Goldie Peggy, 1970, Women in the Field, Anthropological Experiences, Berkeley University of California Press. Levin L.A., ed. 2006, Feminist Anthropology, a Reader, Oxford, Blackwell Publishing. Lyotard, Jean Francois, 1984, The Postmodern Condition, A Report on Knowledge, Manchester University. Mutman Mahamut, 2006, Writing Culture, Postmodernism and Ethnography in Anthropological Theory. Ortner Shari, 1974, Is Female to Male as Nature is to Culture. In Rosaldo, Michael Z and Lucy Lamphere, Women, Culture and Society, Stanford University Press. Rita Rayana, ed. 1975, Towards an Anthropology of Women, New York Monthly Review Press. Rubin Gale, 1975, The Traffic in Women, Notes on the Political Economy of Sex. In Rita Rayana, Towards an Anthropology of Women, New York Monthly Review Press. Slocum, Sally, 1975, Women, the Gatherer, Male Bias in Anthropology. In Reader, Towards an Anthropology of Women, New York Monthly Review Press. Spiro Melford, 1996, Postmodernist Anthropology, Subjectivity and Science, A Modernist Critique in Comparative Studies in Society and History. Stacy Judith, 1991, Can There Be a Feminist Ethnography? In Gluck, S.B. and D. Patai. Women's Words, The Feminist Practice of Oral History. New York, Routledge, Chapman and Hall. Strathern, Margaret, 1987, An Awkward Relationship, The Case of Feminism and Anthropology. Wolf Dine, 1996, Feminist Dilemma in Fieldwork, Boulder, Colorado, Westview Press. Sample question. Discuss the emergence of feminist anthropology. Discuss the contemporary issues and concerns in feminist anthropology. Describe postmodernism and anthropology. Thank you very much.